All right, hey everybody, Brian Good here. A lot to discuss. Let's get right to it. Hazy start today. Overall, looks fairly quiet today. Latest look at the visible satellite. We'd have a few showers earlier on to try to make a run at us, but the air aloft is warming up, so it's hard for a cloud to really develop any more than just that, a very small cloud, even for this afternoon. I'll show you that on the soundings here in just a second. But we're capped, basically, so anything that tries to make a run at us just gets gobbled up. All right, a wider view shows, look at the bubbling effect here into Missouri. I love this on a visible satellite. Isn't that nice? You can see these are cumulonimbus clouds into Missouri, and even one fairly decent one northwest of St. Louis there. Those are thunderstorms. Now, the same thing's going to happen. This southern edge, it's going to try to make a run at us, but the warm air aloft will eat it alive as it does so. But we may get the cloud cover from that for this afternoon. That's why we're going to go with the partly cloudy sky as those clouds stream over us. This part, though, has a better chance to survive, and it likely will redevelop over and over again for the overnight period. But the problem is it tracks off to the east. There will be an outflow because this is likely going to have a Boeing segment to it, kind of an arc on the radar around 11 o'clock tonight. You'll notice that on the news. That Boeing segment will likely produce an outflow. The question, we've been tracking this all week long, is how much will this make its way down toward the Ohio River? Because there's a chance that it may make it all the way to the river, and if it does, it may spark thunderstorms in its path. It may cool the atmosphere down enough to eliminate that warm air way above our heads and allow for some thunderstorms to develop, and they'll be mainly hail producers. So that's an issue we'll have to monitor, and the Storm Prediction Center looks like they are monitoring as well, as that potential is there for some of those to produce some hailstones. They've drawn the marginal risk kind of at an angle for that idea that we may see that little dip here later on tonight. So just it's an iffy thing, but it is something to monitor. All right, so the main focus still, of course, for Saturday is going to be what's going to happen in severe weather for the overnight period. This is the culprit right now, north of Salt Lake City. It's got a while to travel here, so we got plenty of time to track it, but it's going to do a lot of damage in its wake because severe weather outbreak is likely in Oklahoma, into Missouri and Arkansas, especially for tomorrow afternoon and evening. We will be on the fading side of that. The question is how much of the fading side will it be? When you look at the probability, it's certainly higher to the west, but again, that hatched area means significant severe weather, and this is mainly for hail, I think. The instability is so volatile right now in that area showing up in the models that we're talking about baseball-sized hail, if not larger, could fall in some areas there near the Ozarks. So, big-time severe weather event for our friends to the west. Thankfully, we won't get as bad of a setup as they will, but still it's fairly significant for us that we need to monitor things. So we will wrap it all up, by the way, with the cold front with another chance at severe weather Sunday afternoon. So as I said, there's a lot to break down. So let me start off with this afternoon. I know this is hard to read, I apologize, but this is the sounding. If you're new to seeing these, this is the ground level, this is way up high, basically close to where airplanes fly. The green line's moisture, red line is temperature, and I'm not going to go into what every little line means here. But what I want to show you for this afternoon, here is the cap that is showing up, because the red line goes to the right. We warm back up aloft, and relatively dry too. We're not overly saturated. Anytime you get the green and the blue line touching together, you're saturated, all right? And if you're that way all up and down, then you've got heavy rain coming down in our area. But we have a gap there still, so we're looking good for the afternoon. That's the whole point of this. All right, so let's talk about the futurecast. It shows the warm front moving through. And here we go. For the overnight, this is just one model's idea, but you see that little tail effect that happens here that drapes across the Ohio Valley. Now, the question is, how much of this is going to get going? Because this will play a big role in how Saturday afternoon turns out and ultimately how overnight Saturday turns out. When you look at the sounding for the overnight period, we saturate in the lower levels. The two lines come closer together, but we still have somewhat of a cap. What this means, though, is that there's enough layer above our heads that is saturated that you can still get some cumulus to develop into showers, maybe a thunderstorm, and it's pushing it. There's not enough to work with there, but there could be if the model's wrong, and therefore some thunderstorms may try to develop later tonight along that little tail that lines the Ohio River. Hail would be a potential threat for some of those and some lightning. But the cap that's still showing up, at least on the soundings, should prevent them from getting to be huge monster thunderstorms, so they'll have their limit, all right? So I just want to at least point that out. Now, as we head into tomorrow afternoon, this is where I think we're going to run into probably our greatest threat of severe weather, because this complex is going to evolve into a bowling segment. It'll head off to the east. The question is, how much of it is going to turn to the southeast, or will we see it separate? One piece go east along 64, and then the other main band dive into western Tennessee. There's several different ways this could go, guys. And I think the problem we're going to have here, let me change my wand so you can see my marker a little better here. I think the problem we're going to have is if we have this boundary here tonight that develops, and it's still here tomorrow, there's a chance it may develop thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. I'll show you that in a second. There's a chance it could. And it may become active all the way through about sunset. If that happens, then as this activity blossoms in Missouri and heads east, well, that will impact it a bit. It'll likely weaken it as it approaches I-65. However, areas south of Louisville into Tennessee should be relatively untouched. So the complex will then dive or build more southeast. And that would be the end result there. So we would still have at least potential for some damaging winds up to about 65. But those of you south of Louisville and our southern counties toward the Tennessee border, it may certainly reach or exceed 65 down into Tennessee. So there's a lot of questions, again, on how things are going to line up, but it's a domino effect. One setup affects the next one down the line. And so we have to answer each one of those questions in a step process. So that's why you got to bear with us. And it's important to stay tuned to the forecast as it will change. Keep the Way 3 News weather app handy. We're going to try to keep sending out alerts when we update things. And we'll keep that hourly updated as well. Because of all this shifting around, the ground saturated, there is a chance for some flooding that could certainly take place because there's a lot of moisture to work with in the air. So let me show you the futurecast for how Saturday looks on this in-house model. It's hinting on the idea that the boundary will be there. And it shows it. Then once we heat up in the afternoon, it tries to develop some thunderstorms in the afternoon period. And then here we go into the nighttime. Here comes the thunderstorm complex rolling in from the west. But you notice it really just isn't very impressed with it getting all the way into this area of wave country. It's more active here to our southwest. So this in-house model that we have, RPM, is betting on the boundary impacting the overnight activity Saturday night. But I will say this, there's a lot of moisture to work with. So severe or not, it may look and sound severe for some of these thunderstorms, even in the daytime hours, because the humidity is going to be so high. These are dew points. And I got the Muggy meter attached to it because you'll get an idea. As we didn't do Saturday afternoon, dew points in the 70s. I mean, Litchfield 75. That is certainly way out of the even oppressive category. I mean, or sweat as soon as you walk out. So when you get dew points high like that, you can get a lot of cloud-to-ground lightning. So very intense lightning strikes, which can cause enough problems in itself. Remember, there are no warnings just for lightning alone. It's wind and hail and tornadoes that allow for the warnings and flooding. And then we'll see that fade out during the overnight period. When we look at the sounding for Saturday afternoon, there is a bit of a cap. Not much, though, and there's still some saturation levels in the lower layers of the atmosphere, but we're still very unstable. But we really, as we went into Saturday evening around 11 o'clock, we don't have much of a cap at all. So that's eroded away, and the line's fairly close together in many layers, and you even got a dry pocket, which can enhance strong winds, the downburst winds. So the sounding here for 11 o'clock Saturday night is very much indicative of severe weather and damaging winds, and even a brief little spin up if a tornado can't be rolled out, and maybe some large hail. So the atmosphere is set up to produce severe weather, but again, if something can mess up that flow a bit before it in the afternoon hours, that may help us out later. It's not a guarantee, though, so we'll make sure you're just fully aware of the entire picture, and then you guys will kind of watch it with us as we track it and fine-tune the details. Then as we into Sunday, the question is, how cloudy will it be early in the day? Because we still have to deal with the cold front Saturday, Sunday before this is all done with. And if we can become unstable enough Sunday afternoon, then we could see another round of strong thunderstorms that could turn severe. In fact, the models are hinting at instability may build again along the front. But if we stay cloudy and rainy early in the day and we linger that into a good chunk of the afternoon, that will help reduce the coverage of that Sunday afternoon threat. And Monday, by the way, still looks good. We may have some high-level clouds, but Monday, Memorial Day, it looks fantastic. So we just got a lot to track between now and then. Bear with us and stay tuned.